If you want to come into money, then it's very important to know how to become if you can become an influencer, you can make a lot of money. Guys, you will get paid to travel, stay in resorts. You will get free products to review. You will get to meet many celebrities. And most importantly, you will gain respect from people who don't even know you. But if you want to take it up a notch, you need to understand the difference between a speaker and an influencer, because this one small change will unlock a whole new world of opportunity for you. The first way that speakers and influencers are different is that influencers have a much bigger vision. Influencers think beyond themselves. They always try to see what they can do for the people who follow them. They try to bring value to their followers. That is why they're followed. Speakers, on the other hand, generally think about what they can get out of the people who listen to them. Of course, there are some speakers who come into a room and they inspire people. They change people's lives, but that's not what they're trying to do. That just happens as a byproduct. For influencers, it's the other way around. They are trying to change people's lives. But they don't realize that in changing people's lives, they're also going to change their own. So remember, influencers are not in it for the fame or the money. They're in it for the impact. It might sound cliche, but that's why influencers have more fun. They get more fulfillment, and ultimately, they make more money than speakers. Now, let's talk about the second way that speakers and influencers are different. Speakers are often experts in their field. It's like if you want to be a motivational speaker, you have to be motivated. It doesn't work if you're not. But that's not the case with influencers. Influencers are not necessarily experts when they start out. Sometimes they're more like students than experts. They're always learning and growing along with their audience. Influencers know that they don't have all the answers, and they're okay with that. They're comfortable being vulnerable and sharing their struggles as well as their successes. They're not afraid to show their true selves because they know that's what makes them relatable and authentic. Speakers, on the other hand, often present themselves as experts in their field. They share their knowledge and insights and try to be seen as authorities. Let's move on to point number 3. Speakers typically charge money for their services, but influencers often get paid to promote things. Speakers often have to invest money to promote their services, but influencers are usually paid to promote things. It's like the complete opposite. Speakers, generally speaking, they don't have to create a lot of content because they're busy doing other things. But influencers know that creating valuable content is the key to growing their audience and making money. That's why influencers often produce a lot of content. They create blogs, videos, podcasts, and social media posts. They're constantly coming up with new ways to provide value to their audience. In fact, right now, you're watching an influencer do his job. He's providing you with value, and at the same time, he's building his empire. Speakers, generally speaking, they don't really care about building an online presence. They just want to show up and deliver a great speech. But influencers, on the other hand, they know that building an online presence is crucial to their success. They understand that having a strong online presence allows them to connect with their audience in a more personal way and also helps them to promote their services or products. They know that it takes time and effort to build an online presence, but they are willing to put in the work because they know that it's an investment in their future. Moving on to point number 4. Speakers focus on one topic and try to be known as the best in that area. They narrow down their expertise to a specific niche and they master it. They become go-to people in that area and they get invited to speak at events all over the world. But influencers, on the other hand, they focus on many topics. They talk about everything that interests them. They're curious about the world and they want to learn as much as possible. Sure, they might have areas where they're more knowledgeable than others, but they're not afraid to branch out and explore new topics. This allows them to connect with a wider audience and also prevents them from getting bored. Imagine if you were stuck in a room with a speaker. You would probably get bored after a while, especially if they only talk about one topic. But with influencers, it's a different story. They're more entertaining and they keep you engaged because they're always talking about something new. Now let's move on to the 5th way that speakers and influencers are different. Speakers usually have a team to support them, but influencers, they're more likely to be independent contractors. Speakers often have managers publicists, and agents, helping them to promote their services and book speaking gigs. They're often signed to agencies or managed by companies. This can help them reach a wider audience and get more exposure, but it also means that they have to share their profits with the people who are helping them. On the other hand, influencers often work independently. They don't have managers or agents. They're responsible for promoting themselves and finding their own opportunities. This can be tough, but it also means that they get to keep more of the money they make. So, in short, speakers tend to work with teams while influencers are more likely to be independent. Now, let's move on to the sixth way that speakers and influencers are different. Speakers often prepare carefully crafted speeches that they deliver to live audiences. They spend hours, sometimes even days, putting together the perfect presentation. They rehearse their delivery and make sure that their message is clear and concise. However, influencers often make more casual and off-the-cuff content. They don't spend a lot of time planning out their videos or their posts. Instead, they just talk to their camera and share their thoughts and opinions. Now, this doesn't mean that influencers aren't strategic. They definitely have a plan for the content, but they're not as formal and structured as speakers. Speakers tend to follow a script, while influencers often just wing it. Now let's move on to the seventh way that speakers and influencers are different. Speakers are often paid based on the length of their presentation. They might charge a flat fee for a 1-hour presentation, or they might charge by the day. The longer the engagement, the more money they make. Influencers, on the other hand, are often paid based on the size of their audience. They might charge a certain amount to reach a certain number of people. So the bigger the influencer's audience, the more money they make. So in short, speakers are paid based on time, while influencers are paid based on reach. Now, let's move on to the eighth way that speakers and influencers are different. Speakers are often evaluated on the quality of their presentation. How well do they speak? How engaging are they? How clear is their message? Influencers, on the other hand, are often evaluated on the size of their audience. How many followers do they have? How many subscribers? How many people follow them on social media? Finally, we've come to the last way that speakers and influencers are different. Speakers are often thought of as more credible than influencers. People tend to trust speakers more because they often have more expertise and experience. Influencers are often thought of as more relatable and authentic than speakers. People tend to like influencers more because they more down to earth, and they share their struggles as well as their successes. People can relate to that. So, in conclusion, both speakers and influencers can be very successful in their careers. Speakers often have more credibility, while influencers are often more relatable and authentic. Which path you choose depends on your personality and goals. If you're more interested in becoming an influencer, check out this channel here. See you next time at Only Focus Area.